Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/confessions, where OP gave his cheating wife a taste of her own medicine. Let's begin. Today's story was posted by Reddit user BS_WS.
I met my then future wife 10 years ago, and we started dating shortly after. We were both around 15 at the time. Our relationship was always great. We only had minor fights and conflicts, nothing too serious. Looking back, however, I now realize that it was always me putting in most of the effort and initiating most things. From communication, planning dates, to sex and more. I'd be the one to bring up dates and plan them, to send her messages first, to reach out and start conversations. Our sex life wasn't bad. We had sex ranging from several times a week to several times a day. I was the one who always wanted to try new and kinky things. She was more reserved. She herself enjoyed receiving oral, but never wanted to do it herself because it was dirty and disgusting. I've been the one who always made more money and was financially more successful. She always preferred to pursue her hobbies, family, and quickly fell into a housewife routine out of her own volition, to the point where eventually she would only work part-time. This isn't to say she was a gold digger, far from it. I guess she just always felt she had settled. I used to have fairly bad acne in the past, got my dental done late, and wasn't quite as good in shape as I should have been. She never showed any signs of this, so I really had no clue. About 5 years into our relationship, and 1 year into our marriage, she met a guy at the gym. She claims they were initially just friends, would work out together and liked talking to one another, would chat online, and even went out to get dinner and such. I was kept completely in the dark about this new friend and never suspected a thing. A few months into this, she went on a weekend trip with friends. A trip I had to pay her share for. Leaving on a Friday, she was back on Saturday already, telling me she had a fallout with the friend she went on the trip with. She was depressed the entire day, withdrawn into herself, and started to cry several times. At this point, I was mostly worried about her and didn't suspect a thing. She eventually broke down crying for good and confessed that she had cheated on me. It took me quite some time to register what she had just told me, what she had done, and I was numb for the first few minutes. By the time I came out of my stupor, I felt like someone had hit me with a sledgehammer to the heart. I left the room and threw up several times before breaking down and crying like a baby myself. She told me she didn't mean for it to happen, that it was a mistake, that she felt such strong attraction, such a deep connection, and couldn't help herself. However, that after they spent the first night together, when she woke up in the morning, she realized what she had done, that he didn't care about her, didn't love her, and was only using her, and that she didn't love or care about him either, and it had just been a short-lived crush. To make the betrayal worse, she admitted that she had done things with him, such as the oral, that she had always refused to do with me, because emasculating me by having an affair apparently hadn't been enough. Since the day we met, I had loved her. I had always been proud that our relationship had weathered storms where others had run aground, that my family loved her and my friends liked her. I'd always been told how lucky I was, and bragged that I had such a wonderful girlfriend and later wife. I did my best to shower her with my affection all this time, to surprise her with gifts and let her know how much she meant to me. I would do all I could to always make certain she came first for me, was willing to give her oral because she liked it, and despite her not reciprocating, her pleasure always came first for me. What quickly followed was anger and despair. I would yell at her while tears were streaming down my face, asking her why she did it, how she could do this to me, and if she didn't love me anymore. Her answer was that she did not know why, that she had been weak and was caught up in the moment. She begged for forgiveness and for me to give her another chance. She gave me complete transparency, immediately quit the gym, which turned out to be unnecessary, as when I tried to confront him, I came to know that he had bailed as well. She came clean to both my parents and her mother. Her father had died some time ago, and I did the best I could to move on. We booked marriage counseling shortly afterwards and entered individual therapy. I would occasionally lash out in fits of anger, never physical, but verbally, calling her names, and worse. For the most part, she took this willingly. Only few times she responded in kind, telling me she would take me for all I was worth, and no other woman would ever love me. Both my and her parents tried their best to keep me in this relationship. Back then, I foolishly thought at least my parents would have my best interest at heart. They told me mistakes happen, that we could overcome this and grow as a couple and people, that she loved me despite everything. It took me months to get beyond this, for the anger and revulsion to subside. I never loved her the same as I did before, but I came to love this new her, or at least I thought I did. She was willing to do everything she could to help us heal and make it work. After her outbursts, she signed a post-nuptial agreement in my favor, foregoing most every support on my end. She initiated a lot more, and our sex life actually improved. I was unwilling to give her oral after this. The idea itself completely disgusted me. We have been each other's first in pretty much everything. Then she went and had unprotected sex with the AP. She never complained, despite how much she loved this prior. She also was willing to do a lot more things with me now. She later said me asking her if I was so disgusting to her, or why she was willing to do these things with him. She wasn't with me, deeply hurt her, and she wanted to make up for it. For a few years, we were genuinely happy. I started going to the gym myself on the regular, and other problems I used to have, such as the acne, cleared up by themselves. As time went on, I stopped checking up on her and stopped suspecting foul play on her part. She doesn't go out much on her own anymore, and if she does, it's usually just with mutual friends. Everything was great, or so I thought, until about half a year ago. After a restructuring at work, I met female coworker. We instantly hit it off, had mutual interests, and got along great. We would exchange messages, stay later at work so we could chat, and more. At this point, I had no actual intention to take this anywhere improper. I don't know why, but the relationship I was sharing with this coworker brought a lot of old resentment, distrust, and anger back to the surface. I tried so hard to forgive and forget, but deep down, I never got over it. If I could rein myself in, if I could stop this from escalating, why couldn't she? That she seemingly never suffered any consequences for her behavior, that everyone who knew had so easily forgiven her helped fuel my resentment. I started checking on her again. I looked at call logs and messages, and lo and behold, I found exactly what I at this point thought I would. A slew of calls with a guy I considered one of my closest friends up until this point in the last week while I was at work. At first I was completely livid and had half a mind to throw her out of the house instantly. Then I simply went cold. I found I didn't care anymore. Finding this in one fell swoop killed any love or lingering attachment I still had for her. The next day I met with the coworker and embarked on my own affair. It was cathartic. It helped me shed a weight on my mind and emotional health I never knew I had. I felt better and more free than I had in years. I also shortly after got in touch with a divorce lawyer. I simply wanted out at this point. I increasingly stayed out, didn't bother to make many excuses, and avoided my wife as much as I could. There was no way she wouldn't pick up on that, and I can genuinely say I didn't care. It took her an entire week to work up the courage to finally approach me and ask me what was going on. I came clean at that point. I told her I knew about the calls. I told her I knew she hadn't told me about her being in contact with him behind me back. I told her I knew she was having an affair again, or working herself up to one. Then I told her about my own affair, all the graphic details. As horrible as it sounds, seeing the same hurt and crushing her in the way she had once crushed me felt liberating. She began to wail and cry. She threw up in the living room. First she screamed, then she apologized. She claimed it wasn't like that she didn't have an affair with him, that they were planning a surprise party for my upcoming birthday. Then she did something I didn't expect, especially after I had told her I wanted a divorce, and had an affair of my own. She pleaded for me to stay with her, to try and make this work, told me she loved me more than anyone. I simply left at that point and went to a motel. I've completely cut off all contact with her and refused to even acknowledge her existence. That way 2 weeks ago. Since her mother is living almost 500 miles away, she is now of all people staying with my parents. Other people, mutual friends, family, and even my parents have been bombarding me with messages, from pleading me to contact her, all the way to threatening and insulting me, from telling me she's thinking of the shadow realm and barely eats and wants to make this work no matter what, to demanding I beg her for forgiveness for my transgressions. The only ones I have personally talked to were my parents, whom I have since lost any and all respect to. I have found out that my own mother had at least 3 affairs, all of whom my father has forgiven her for, which might have been one of the reasons, especially my mother, sided with her all that time ago. Yet, they're angry at me for doing this to her, for not acting as a man is supposed to act, for running away from my responsibilities and hurting my wife in this way. My mother told me she's going to take care of her for me until I come to my senses, as if me wanting her back is somehow a given, and if she's a small furry animal, others have to look after. They and others have also backed up her claims about why she contacted other people in secrecy, including the former friend. I have a hard time believing any of them, given their reaction to her and my affair are like night and day. On the positive side, I've found that she was wrong, that nobody else would want me. I've since seen the other woman several times and had 2 casual hookups. Apparently, I'm not unattractive after all. TLDR, my wife had an affair almost 5 years ago with a guy she met at the gym. She confessed shortly after, and we worked through it. She did things with him she refused to do with me prior to this, and that knowledge never really stopped hurting me. I had thought I had managed to get beyond the anger and resentment, but recently found out that I hadn't. Shortly after, I found evidence of another affair, and instead of confronting her, I started an affair of my own. She and others claimed she wasn't having an affair at all. Everyone, including my own parents who told me I had to forgive her and try to do again, are now branding me as a horrible person and expect me to get back with her and atone. My parents actually took her in, apparently to keep her safe until I come to my senses. I really don't want to and don't feel bad about this at all. If anything, it feels like we're finally drawing even.
Two wrongs definitely does not make a right, and I am heavily against revenge affairs because it strips you of the moral high ground. It shows that you are just as weak and pathetic as the cheater you so deeply hate. OP, you should have just left the first time. But at least you found out who truly has your back. Unfortunately, your parents are not one of those. Your mom's a hoe and your dad's a little bitch. But you, OP, you can be better than them. You can be better than this. It's not too late to live happily. Cut the cancers out of your life and start anew. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.